Hello there! Ancient Egypt. Don't worry, it's not that hard. You already know this stuff, but you don't even know that you already know it. See, ancient Egypt is a lot like the internet, because everybody's writing all over walls and worshipping cats. More on that in a little bit. Let's get started.
Ancient Egypt was divided into 4 distinct consecutive periods: the early dynastic period, the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. The Old Kingdom was nicknamed the Pyramid Age because pharaohs were buried in pyramids during this time. The Middle Kingdom was Egypt's Golden Age, during which literature and art flourished. The New Kingdom was Egypt's period of imperialistic conquest. Within each period was a number of dynasties for a combined total of 30 dynasties. The early dynastic period lasted from around 3100 BCE to 2575 BCE, the Old Kingdom from around 2575 BCE to 2134 BCE, the Middle Kingdom from around 2040 BCE to 1640 BCE, and the New Kingdom lasted from around 1532 BCE to 1070 BCE.
Walk like an Egyptian.
The ancient Egypt civilization was located in the northeastern region of Africa. Ancient Egypt, being 90% desert, was very hot and dry. Archaeological evidence suggests that Egypt became environmentally hospitable around 7000 BCE, with larger settlements beginning to appear in Upper Egypt around 4000 BCE. As you may already know, the civilization was centered around the Nile River and was split up into upper and lower halves accordingly. Upper Egypt being part of the Upper Nile and Lower Egypt being part of the Lower Nile. Note that rivers flow from higher to lower elevations, and that Upper Egypt is actually farther south than Lower Egypt. The Nile flooded once a year, like clockwork, around the same time, depositing valuable silt, making them agriculturally productive.
Ancient Egypt's isolation, self-sufficiency, and its natural resources greatly influenced its economy. Ancient Egypt was heavily agriculture-based, and some of the crops grown included grains, figs, and pomegranate. The Nile provided a source of fish, drinking water, and cooking water, as well as irrigation water for agriculture. In all of the Egyptian periods, Egypt was interested in goods from the south, like gold, incense, and products of tropical Africa, like ivory, dark ebony wood, and jungle animals, like the puma. That was a puma. Pumas are fierce. The economies and trade of the Old and Middle Kingdoms of Egypt were very similar. Old and Middle Kingdom Egypt maintained its relative isolation. All foreigners were considered enemies, and Egypt had a small standing army of professional soldiers. Egypt's interests abroad focused on maintaining access to valuable resources. There were small amounts of trade with coastal towns of Levant that brought in cedar wood. Egypt's exports included items such as grain, papyrus, and gold. The Nile was used in very limited sub-Saharan trade. Then, Egypt's trade and economy drastically changed during the New Kingdom. During the New Kingdom, Egypt became more involved in commercial trade networks. An example of this was Queen Hatshepsut sent a naval expedition to Punt around 1470 BCE to seek myrrh. Long-distance trade networks were based on metals and expedited by the advent of horses and camels. Merchants who worked for personal gain only existed during the New Kingdom. During the New Kingdom, one of the civilizations Egypt increased contact and trade with was Nubia to the south, as well as the Syria-Palestine area.
Bueno.
What's up, my people? Langston in the house. I'm about to talk about Egyptian culture. Now, all food was eaten with hands. Beer and wine were popular drinks for people, and the main type of clothing worn in ancient Egypt was made out of white linen. Sometimes wool was used, however, because of a religious belief that animal skin should not touch human skin, men wore linen cloths and short skirts, and women wore low robes or tight dresses. Clothing also differentiated based on social hierarchy. The people of lower class, such as peasants and slaves, could not afford clothing and basically wore nothing. On the other hand, the vizier may have worn a full-length robe. Sandals were also worn by wealthy Egyptians. When it came to education, the children stayed with the mother till 4 years old, then the boys would go to school and learn about the same trade as their fathers. The school taught basic education, and at the age of 14, the boys then worked with the fathers in their profession. the boys with fathers in higher status received further education. Women were only looked on for managing the house. The girls did not go to school but learned from their mother how to be a good wife. The Egyptians did have a social hierarchy based off of wealth and power of the citizens, but ancient Egypt technically had no formal class structure like the Mesopotamians, for example. Social hierarchy in ancient Egypt had started with the pharaoh, who had all power and made the rules for the society. The citizens believed the pharaoh to be a god and son of Ra. The side man of the pharaoh was a vizier. He was the pharaoh's most trusted advisor. The next tier of the pyramid were the priests and the nobles. The priests were supposed to keep the gods happy. The nobles gained their wealth from tributes to the gods, and the nobles participated in collecting taxes. The next class were soldiers who kept peace in and outside of Egypt. The next group of people were the craftsmen, including the scribes, merchants, and artisans. At the bottom of the class were the farmers, peasants, and slaves. Even though they were at the bottom of the class structure, they made up most of the population.
In the middle bed, when the buzzer rings, they're walking like an Egypt. This just in. This is Ali Shutzberg reporting from Cairo about a very important ancient Egyptian news story. The ancient Egyptians took their religion very seriously, and it contributed significantly to their culture, so they tended to resist change. They were polytheistic and had over 700 different gods. Each city built a temple for the god of that city. Their chief gods were Ra, who was later called Amun-Ra, and Osiris. They even saw the pharaoh as a divine ruler, giving him and the priests a lot of power. Because of this reliance, if life was good, then the pharaoh and priest were doing a good job, but if life was bad, they were the people to blame. Like most polytheistic religions of this time, their religion was based on nature. They believed particularly animals like bulls, crocodiles, and especially cats were very holy. They also believed in an afterlife, so they dedicated a lot of time to studying the Book of the Dead, which they brought with them to their tombs, along with other many valuable possessions. Before the upper class dead, particularly the pharaoh, were put in their tombs, they had to be mummified to preserve their physical bodies for the afterlife. Everyone, I am proud to introduce Tutankhamun, who's going to tell us a little bit about being a mummy. So Tut, tell us about yourself.
Hold up, is this toilet paper? God, it took them 70 days to wrap me up in this crap? Wait. I got a joke for you guys. How do you get into a mummy's tomb?
How?
Tutankhamun!
That's a knee slapper.
Yeah.
Alright, Tut. So, you have anything else to say for us?
Well, before I leave, I wanna clear up a misconception about mummies. Mummies are people too. Now, we're just dead people. But don't believe any of that Scooby-Doo crap. Do you really think I have anything better to do than go around chasing dogs with speech impediments? No.
Alright, well, thanks for coming, Tut.
Thanks for having me, Allie.
One last thing. Egyptians also practiced magic and divination.
Hello there. Ancient Egyptians developed many innovative and unique technologies. Two of the major architectural feats that essentially define Egypt and what it is known for are the monumental pyramids and sphinxes that they built. They were able to construct these pyramids with the help of slaves and simple machines such as ramps and levers. Egyptians of the New Kingdom mastered bronze metallurgical techniques around 1500 BCE after conquering Syria, Palestine, and Nubia and obtaining their knowledge of metalworking as well as their valuable minerals. Additionally, they discovered glassmaking and developed primitive medicine based on animal derivatives. One of the most important achievements of the ancient Egyptians was their invention of the hieroglyphs, a pictographic writing system that was used for record-keeping, storytelling, and religious purposes. They wrote hieroglyphs mostly on walls and papyrus, which was a parchment made out of reeds found along the Nile. Another technology common among the early civilizations in present Egypt was an irrigation system that was simple yet crucial for agricultural production.
Egypt had a monarchy, and the kings were called pharaohs. The pharaohs were the link between the Egyptian people and the gods. In the Old Kingdom, the pharaohs had the capital located in Memphis, and in 1650, during the New Kingdom, the pharaohs had the capital located in Thebes. Bureaucrats kept track of land, products, people, and taxes. The government held a monopoly over long-distance trade, unlike Mesopotamia, in which middle-class merchants made up long-distance trade. In its history, pharaohs unified Upper and Lower Egypt, and they wore 2 crowns to symbolize this unification. The monarchy and bureaucracy of Egypt tended to have disagreements. Later in Egyptian history, they expanded into Nubia and exercised control over that area. Some important rulers in the new kingdom of Egypt were Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, and Ramses II. These 3 rulers focused on expanding the territory of Egypt instead of staying isolated like the Old and Middle Kingdoms. Hatshepsut dispatched a naval expedition to Punt, which was possibly southeast of Sudan. Akhenaten built a new capital of Egypt at Amarna and created a new monotheistic religion which praised Aten. Tutankhamun, meaning beautiful in the life of Amun, ruled briefly after Akhenaten. His name shows that Akhenaten's monotheistic religion did not last long after his death. Ramses II began a new dynasty called the Ramessides. He undertook many monumental building projects all across Egypt. He also reached an accommodation with the Hittites after a standoff battle in Syria.
There were many important people and events throughout the history of ancient Egypt. Some of these important people were Akhenaten, an emperor who founded a new religion in Egypt, Hatshepsut, who encouraged trade during her reign in the New Kingdom, and Khafre, who built the famous Great Sphinx. Around 5000 BCE, people first began settling in the Nile River Valley. From around 4400 to 4000 BCE, people began to first domesticate plants and animals. Starting in 3200 BCE, hieroglyphs were developed. Around 525 BCE, Persians began their invasion of Egypt. From 510 to 497 BCE, King Darius completed his canal from the Nile to the Red Sea. Around 332 BCE, Alexander the Great invaded Egypt, founding Alexandria the next year. Around 31 BCE, Queen Cleopatra VII and Mark Antony are defeated, after which Octavian enters Egypt, beginning Roman rule.
Walk like an Egyptian.
This primary source shows how the pharaoh held immense political power and how the pharaoh was also thought of as divine. This source was written during the coronation of Queen Hatshepsut, which was during the New Kingdom. It was written by Thutmose I, Queen Hatshepsut's father.
This my daughter, Khemet Amun Hatshepsut, who liveth. I have appointed her. She is my successor upon the throne. She, assuredly, is who shall sit upon my wonderful seat. She shall command the people in every place of the palace. She it is who shall lead you. Ye shall proclaim her word. Ye shall be unite at your command. He who shall do her homage shall live. He who shall speak evil in blasphemy of her majesty shall die. Whosoever proclaims with anonymity the name of her majesty shall enter immediately into the royal chamber, just as it is done by the name of his Horus, for thou art divine, O daughter of a god, for whom even the gods fight, behind whom they exert their protection every day, according to the command of her father, the Lord of the gods.